Hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing well. Welcome to our webinar about workforce management, the industry landscape. This webinar is the culmination of the work we have been doing over the past few months with a combined research with a lot of our sponsors here in Jingsu, CCMET, Long Reach Recruitment, Summit WFM, and Modus RP, which I extend a huge thank you for being part of this journey. Before I give the word to why we are all here for the webinar, let me just briefly give a view on weWFM. So we have been running for a bit over 2 months. Our sole mission is to provide and be the platform for the voice of the WFM professionals. And this is what we aim for our mission: being an advocate, share experiences, share stories, and be able to innovate and disrupt in this world. The goal of today is to actually share our research. So we have been running a research that is now public. You will see the scan me codes across our event. And the research was simple. So we did multiple surveys. We collected feedback from many of you. We did expert interviews, and we combined all of that sentiment to produce a final report. That report is what enables us to be here today speaking about the landscape of the industry with a few of the findings we found out throughout this research. Findings that are in multiple categories, from what are we today? So knowing that, for instance, the most common setup of a WFM structure is 1 to 10 members, but we found out that there are teams with over 50, over 100. The fact that 20%, a bit above 20% of us still use Excel as the main tool for our day-to-day. And the fact that when we look at the industry that is being prospering for a long time, the average tenure, or 33%, have been in WFM in less than 3 years. So there is loads of opportunities that we found out that leads to skills, to the job market, to who is in the run for getting a new view and a new scope and their perspectives. And analytical skills being the number one, with 20% of the respondents pursuing that path. But the fact that 75% are looking for a new job is a very big number to have in mind. Also, about technology being all the baseline for what we do. So there is a back to the Excel and spreadsheets being used, Erlang being the method that we still use for all the capacities. And there is an important part which we'll tap in the webinar about integrations. So poor integrations with HR, and the fact that the WFM systems are not properly integrated with all the tools and channels we use, which is a big part of what we do. So all of this was collected in our research. The research is available for free. More than everyone that is listening, please feel free to download and get a copy. And this is what basically led to our webinar today. Without further ado, I will briefly introduce our guests. So the webinar will be hosted by Bilhan Tolun. Bilhan is one of our co-founders at WFM. And let me bring all our guests first to the live stage, starting with Ian. Ian has been working with us for a long time. He knows the WFM industry better than anyone, hiring for multiple roles, multiple seniorities for the last decades. Ian, welcome to the panel. Let me move to Chris. Chris, welcome as well. Chris is a friendly face. I think everyone knows Chris for a long time from Injing. So Chris, you have been in the show in the past. We have been planning to make sure that everything goes okay, and we have been saying that fail to plan is planning to fail. The quote that stayed for a while. And then finally, Gare, our professor, someone that knows in depth all the mathematics and all the ins and outs of our workforce management world. So without further ado, I will pass the word to Bilhan so we can host this panel. Thank you, gentlemen. I will be watching from the back end. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Andre. So let's start. Hi, everyone. By the way, I am Bilgehan Tolun. I will try to host this webinar for you today. So let's start with the first question that I would like to raise to you. As WFM landscape evolves, continuous learning and skill development become crucial. which specific skills do you believe workforce management professionals need to focus on to stay relevant and effective in this dynamic environment?
Okay, thank you. It's almost a question that could fill up a whole webinar on its own, really. Um, so I'll for the purpose of time and for being concise, I've kind of broken it into sort of three key things that I see as a recruiter in the WFM space that are becoming quite topical. And look, it's like the elephant in the room, isn't it? We're all aware of, maybe a little bit nervous and a bit reticent about the evolution of AI within WFM. And I would say, it's happening. My most recent assignment was an interesting one. So the UK market is slowly adopting AI into their requirement to hire. From my experience so far, that's mainly been limited to the forecasting element of the planning cycle. But without a shadow of a doubt, you can see it would have a huge impact, certainly in the scheduling piece, and the real-time management would certainly be a big ticket place for AI. I guess for lots of people that are watching today, it's one of those, one of the unknowns, and I think we were discussing this offline. Is it something that's going to reduce opportunities and the career path, and indeed the volume of jobs in the industry? And I think I don't have a silver bullet answer for that. I think quite possibly automation, like most things, reduces time, speed, effort. So there's an argument to say there could be a small reduction in certain parts of the planning cycle where a human intervention isn't necessarily overly required. But what I think is absolutely key is AI will, I think, positively evolve the job of a workforce planner or a resource planner. And I think we probably need to focus more on the benefits we get from AI than being overly worried about it, because it's happening. It's not going to go away. It's not going to change. And I think the only constant in life is change. And as planners, we all work and adapt to change fantastically well. The pandemic and the whole remote working movement enacted within a couple of days or weeks even is great testament to that. But I think in terms of kind of, getting an understanding of it, I think, look, we need to appreciate it will remove probably the more mundane, manually intensive, error-prone processes that the forecasting discipline in particular is grounded within. So it provides speed, and I think if the algorithms are correct, it should also provide a much tighter forecast accuracy, which is a benefit for everybody within the process, and the ability to have this information super quick. Um, so I think AI, we should embrace it. We should really try to get to grips and ride the wave of it, in particular, and view it as an asset, not a threat. I think it absolutely has a place. Um, and I think really, I'd like to also make a really key point, which is, you know, there is complex automation. There are algorithms, and Gare will have a lot more to say about this later on. But I think we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the human interpretation, the element, and the refinement of what's being produced can't be replaced by automation. So understanding what's happening locally in your teams, in your businesses, understanding what future events are, change, special events, transformation programs, and also, you guys, it's the voice of reason almost, kind of laying it out into the operation so it's embedded, but also it's folded into the operational plan, whether it's sort of strategic or tactical. That isn't the job of automation or AI, but it means we do have to evolve. And look, and how we evolve and get to grips with this, I don't think, again, there's an easy answer, but I think, if you're in an organisation that has an engineering or a data science team, as planners, try and get a bit more involvement with it. See whether there is some sort of shared learning program or mentorship. I think that would be an absolutely brilliant way of being familiar with it, taking away the fear of the unknown, and actually accelerating your sort of learning path as well. If you don't have that functionality internally, then look, be resourceful. Use online channels, join forums. uh, hook up with webinars such as this, look at tutorials that are online. But I think, look, in general, planners are probably amongst the most adaptable people out there in the industry. You've had to be. You can't keep the plate spinning like you do without having that mental agility and intelligence and curiosity and great balance. I think AI will be another skill, to add to the impressive repertoire that most guys already have. So that was kind of my first point. I think still staying on the analytical side of things, and again, speaking from personal experience, sort of recruiting, certainly in the last 2 years, 18 months, I'm seeing a co-joined approach of we want a planner, forecaster, scheduler, but we also want them to have some responsibility to the provision of providing us impactful insight. So I guess traditionally we would view that as MI reporting, performance reporting, KPI dashboards, that type of stuff. And I think all of that still has its place, and it's still commonplace. I kind of feel maybe ML and AI will probably do that really quickly with headline capture points, because the data points are what we would use anyway. So I think in terms of sort of not future proofing, but kind of enriching your skill set, it's not so much now for planners on the performance reporting and KPI trackers, but trying to use analytics to create dynamic, layered, visual information that can be easily consumed at different levels of the hierarchy in an organization. And I would say, within WFM, we're typically data rich, right, in terms of the systems that we use. And if we just pick core ones, WFM, telephony, IVR, if you're lucky enough to have speech or sentiment analytics, there's a treasure trove of information that's available around performance, customer behavior, customer sentiment. So I think it's really topical, and I would recommend all of the planners out there, if it's not already in your repertoire, and most of you are going to be really super proficient with Excel, you'll have a baseline or a really good application knowledge of Erlang for your FTE sort of profiling. But take your Excel up a notch. If it's intermediate, drive it to an advanced level. If you can, learn some VBA, explore SQL if that isn't in your skills parameter right now. And the other big advice I would give is spend some time developing and learning or being familiar with the data visualization tool, because it's super, super topical. So I would go with a Power BI, a Tableau, probably a third sort of fast up and comer is Looker as well. Those are the three. So, don't just narrow your technical and analytical skills within Excel, broaden it out. The visualization is going to be key, because how we consume data and the speed of it is changing, and it's becoming a real requirement in today's contact center environment. Oh gosh, my third one isn't really an analytical skill, but I noticed from the research report that there was quite a high respondee level of people saying that they were disappointed with maybe the level of impact the planning team had operationally. I don't really have an answer for that, but what I did want to bring to the table was that, in my experience, I think the most effective and well regarded and impactful planning teams consistently display strong communication across the operation, and they're influencers, in so much as they're coming to the table with fact and recommendation and a solution to either an existing or a preemptive problem that hasn't quite happened. And I think that's absolutely key, to have impact and to have that voice in the table. And I think really communication is the key one. It's not something easily taught. It's done by practice. It's over the years. It's being involved in forums. It's being involved in meetings internally where if you're not maybe given a voice, maybe give yourself a voice. Ask the questions, engage and evolve, and have a dynamic conversation with various parts of the business. And I think it's a harder one because it's a softer skill. But I think if you can marry your analytical and technical aptitude and ability with being able to convey planning, WFM, insight recommendations to diverse audiences, you're on a real path of career success, because you're building trust, you're building buying, and I guess the core thing is you're building credibility. Again, there's not an awful lot of options out there if your organizational structure doesn't allow you to do that. But if I can just share a couple of very quick examples on how I've seen planning on WFM teams get more impact and visibility. It's mainly by raising their profile and awareness internally. So a big ticket win, which most companies I'm sure will do, but the ones that don't, this is a real winner, is your new staff induction and training. So how you're bringing people into your organizational structure, and you do the boring health and safety stuff, compliance, all that systems knowledge. Have a little segment that incorporates workforce management. So people are kind of familiar with that functionality and who these people are and why they do what they do from day one. So there's almost an immediate, acceptance. This is the environment we work in, and these are the guys that support us. And for them, it's going to specifically center around who creates my schedules, why are they giving me the rubbish ones, how do I flex them, is there any big preferencing, how do I do a shift swap and slide, what does it mean to me? So I think that's a real easy, quick ticket win. Another one of my clients, their team, a couple of years ago, born out of frustration, decided to give their planning team a name and a brand internally, and actually spent about 3-4 quarters within the year doing impromptu roadshows in service areas, sales areas, retention, back office, talking about systems, technology, how they deliver their output, how they communicate it, what that friction, if any, was between operational accepting the plan as to how they got to the plan and what the recommendations were derived from. And I think that opened up a whole learning curve between, let's call them operations in the main, with the planning function, and actually started a lot of debate and question about, well, we didn't know that you did that. We didn't know that you didn't have access to historical data because of COVID. And we didn't know that actually a lot of the assumptive work you do, we could help give you feed into that as well. So I think gaining visibility is a real key one. The communication is a key one. But temper all of those with marrying that with a really solid platform of your analytics, your technology, and I guess more importantly, applying emotional intelligence to all of these. So actually it's a message that people will want to buy and understand. So hopefully I've come in on time, because I think I could have gone on for a good couple of hours on this one.
I couldn't agree more with your answers. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So, Chris, I think you would like to add something.
Yeah. I don't overlabor the point, but we were talking in the countdown today about AI, the elephant in the room, as you put it here, and we all agreed it is definitely another industrial revolution that we're experiencing here. And yes, it is going to have an impact on planning, but at the end of the day, it is a tool, no more and no less. And since the days of the caveman, we found fire and the wheel. They were tools. This is another tool. Now we already know that AI can deliver super accurate forecasts without you really having to lift a finger. I don't think anybody's lost the job because of that so far. But there are actually things, sort of right brain things, that AI will never be able to do. And I think it's important to focus on those right brain sort of skills that you were talking about there, Ian, in your section. So the sort of things we're thinking about are, forecasting. Yeah, it's brilliant to pattern recognition, identifying trends and so on. But it will never, be able to add business intelligence. You only get business intelligence by talking, by collaborating with your colleagues in operations and marketing and so on. And that means interhuman communication, interdepartment collaboration. Another thing is, in the survey, it turned out that there's a perception of underperformance by a lot of the respondents in schedule optimization and real-time management. I think we've all seen that to some extent. I mean, technology, even AI, is not a solution to that on its own. Somebody, if you're going to introduce optimized schedules, you've got to sell the idea of moving away from the comfortable, familiar, repeating patterns, maybe, that we've had for years. And that's sort of a sales skill. So it's about, winning hearts and minds for the innovations that, planners can deliver. That's sort of my observation.
Yeah, thank you. So for the second question, this is for you, Gab, if you don't mind. Given the rapid
Sure.
technology advancements and the increasing importance of AI in forecasting, scheduling, and analytics, what do you see as the primary challenges and opportunities for workforce management professionals in adapting to these changes?
Yes, interesting question, and great to be here today. and these are interesting times to be part of. As you might know, I'm both a professor in business analytics, doing lots with AI, and being part of CCMAT, where we integrate that in tooling. So it's really very exciting times that are going on. And I agree with the previous with the other panel members that we see a lot of things going on in forecasting right now, and that there are many other opportunities. And the thing is, your question is about what are the consequences for WFM professionals. Well, in the first place, I mean, AI and ML, machine learning, which is this prediction part of AI, expanding beyond old statistical techniques and using lots of data. And indeed, call centers are data rich, so there are many opportunities in call centers. But this is pretty heavy machinery. So unless you're a very experienced consultant or an experienced programmer, and some people entering WFM are to a certain extent, but I mean, you really want, you do not just want an algorithm doing forecasting, you want it to be part of a workflow. You need to do this every week, doing this forecasting. So it should be integrated in your whole system. So there are lots of other things coming there, data engineering. So it's more actually the added value is more in the tooling that we use than directly the audience here today, mostly probably WFM professionals. I mean, this is heavy machinery that needs to be integrated in processes. So I think it's more in the tooling that we'll see, and of course, understanding the tooling. That is what you would need to, well, this understanding you would need to have as a professional. So indeed, talking about forecasting, planning, scheduling, good algorithms are crucial, especially in forecasting. You see more and more integration of artificial intelligence in planning. Forecasting is especially good artificial intelligence, especially good in predictions, in forecasting. And there are other methods related to AI, but not part of machine learning, that are good in making good plans and schedules. And this is also getting stronger. I mean, it's not in the broad field of AI. Many things are going on, and there you see also thanks to simply to the stronger computers that we can make better schedules and better plans. On the other hand, and that is one of the surprising things that I learned from the report that you guys made, is that there's still some low-hanging fruit. I hear Erlang C. I mean, Erlang himself invented the Erlang C formula 100 years ago, and some very basic things of call centers are not part of that. So I think there is still low-hanging fruit, and of course, if you have a whole process in place, the whole process is as strong as its weakest links, and you can use very advanced tooling here, but if you use Erlang C at the other end, then the added value of this very advanced technology, I mean, that is a bit doubtful. You should look at where's the biggest added value, and that depends also on what is the objective of the call center, what do you want to achieve, where are your challenges. So I see some applications in forecasting. I do see that technology for planning, scheduling gets stronger. I also see that tooling gets smarter and more human. I mean, we can make interfaces better. You do not have to set 100 parameters anymore. You can have, as they call auto ML, automated machine learning, setting your parameters. Yes, and using strong computers, lots of data to do that. So I think our tooling evolves and gets more smarter. So I think there are things going on. Then back to the, and I do think, I haven't mentioned that yet, but real-time monitoring, analysis, there is a lot of human interaction and interpreting text, what humans do. I think there are lots of opportunities. And that is really a growing field that I'm also very much interested in. Because I think when you look at technology, we talk a lot about forecasting, we all have scheduling tools, but I think when it comes to real-time management, this is still handwork, is largely suboptimal, and I think that AI can do a big job over there. And so that's really one of the areas I'm personally very much interested in. Then going back to the people, so what should you as a WFM professional do with the fact that all this AI and other advanced technology gets more and more integrated in our tooling? And I do see, and that is also what I heard Ian say, I do see especially in forecaster, I do see people from with another background, with a data science background, with a more technical background entering the WFM field. I see they have mixed success, and one of the reasons is to really, call centers is a very specific field, and you really have to understand call centers well to be able to do things. If you want to do, I mean, you cannot just take a random AI forecasting algorithm and apply it to a call center, because call centers are different. They're, well, without going into all the technicalities, but the different forms of seasonality. You only have a few years of data, and they are used working with lots of data. Yes, there's lots of data, but it's only a few years, which makes certain things difficult. Events play a big role. So call center forecasting, you have to forecast at the 50-minute level. So these are all things that are not like the standard forecast, and they make it very specific. So it's not just about knowing technology, it's also about really understanding what is behind call center. Why do we see things happening? Why the service level or the number, the queue can go from from 0 customers to 5 customers all of a sudden? What's going on, and what should we do with that? So really a deep understanding of call centers, I think that is important, and in combination with the tooling to understand what you're doing as a planner. So I do think, and of course many WFM professionals, they kind of, through some weird way, they entered the field of WFM. So you often also lack the background. So I think there are lots of opportunities to learn more about call centers and the associated tooling. So I think there are definitely opportunities for professionals to better adapt, to understand these changes, to know about the terminology, to understand a bit what is machine learning and what is the added value. So I definitely think there are opportunities there.
Thank you so much for your answers. I believe our audience finds that really interesting as well, like me. So the third question, Chris, this is for you. In the light of the comprehensive index, apologies. In the light of the comprehensive index developed to identify and celebrate best class workforce management practices within our research, how do you think that workforce management professionals can increase their impact on the organizations? What can we do?
Thanks for that. Looking around the table, there's quite a lot of experience of workforce management planning in contact centres. I've been involved since Queen Victoria was on the throne, so got a bit of experience. There's one thing that I think we all know for sure, and that is that the planning team has got one of the most difficult jobs you can imagine. They're balancing 3 forces. You get beaten up if you don't hit service level or whatever the customer service goals are. You've got to take agents into account as much as possible, not burning them out. You've got proper levels of occupancy, handling nasty things like time off requests, and all that while running a really tight ship. So, making an efficient operation. And most of the time they're doing a great job, the planning team, but they don't get the credit they deserve. And, that's something that, is a bit of a mystery, really. We did an excellent webinar at Ingixo last November. We had 3 experts. They're all really experienced planners, actually a number of awards between them. And if you want to see that webinar, by the way, just go to ingixo.com/events, and you can see videos of all our past webinars. This one was called, Contact Center Workforce Management Trade Secrets from 3 award winners. And a key part of their advice was about how planning professionals can increase their impact. We really, as planners, deserve a seat at the table, not the last people to know, for example, when there's a marketing campaign going on, something like that. And, I sort of distilled, pinched, so a couple of ideas from that webinar. And the first thing is, we know that it doesn't always go perfectly. There are times when we don't hit service level for an extended period, or experience high staff turnover, things like that. We've got to be honest about failures and learn from them. Identify why things went wrong, and 9 times out of 10, I think we've all seen this. It's because the planning team wasn't close enough to the business and not aware of changes that were outside their remit. I mean, marketing is the obvious one. I mentioned it before, but things like price changes and legislation changes, things like that. We need to know them. So actually lobbying to get involved in those that information outside the planning team. And the second thing is, when it does go right, to celebrate success. And I say the people that we had on that webinar had won awards, but anybody can enter for CCMA awards, Forum awards, SWPP, and they reflect well on the planning team, but also on the organization. If you do a great job of consistently hitting service level, then that's good for the business. Another point to make about getting planners the credit they deserve is that I'm afraid to say, I think Ian might have mentioned this before, but quite often the interface between the planning function is actually reporting. So it's the weekly and monthly reports that the planning team has to produce, and this is something that the planning team in many cases could do better. If we're honest, the key thing is, if leaders can digest and take action from the reports that the planning team produces, i.e., if they actually find them useful, they're going to start paying attention to them. And guess what? The planning team will get, the kudos that they deserve from that. And believe it or not, we've got another little plug. The Injixo blog has got a brilliant piece, a blog post, 8 workforce management reporting and analysis mistakes you can't afford to make. And we wrote that in partnership with the planning forum, actually, the forum. You just go to blog.injixo.com and search for that. But I mean, typical things that we're getting wrong in planning with that reporting is, the KPIs. I mean, why are we reporting on KPIs that nobody's measuring, picking the wrong ones, using those that may be out of date or too many of them, producing reports that really were sort of right-only reports that nobody reads, that don't pass the so what test, and perhaps most importantly, not having a call to action. Which if we made a mistake, something went wrong, we need something to change, and that needs some action that's got to be taken as a result, rather than just a number for the sake of having a number. So a couple of ideas there, hopefully to increase strategic impact and promote what the planning team's up to. If anyone else has any comments about that.
Thank you so much. If anyone has something to add, please do not hesitate to interrupt me before the next question. So, all right then, can we get the last question, please? All right. So in many organizations struggling to integrate their workforce management solutions seamlessly with CRM system, telephony system, or even HR system, while at the same time do not take full advantage of tools across full workforce management cycle. What strategies or approaches would you recommend to enhance the technological adoption and operational efficiency in workforce management ecosystem? Chris, if you don't mind, can you answer also that one?
Yeah, I'll put 2 pence worth in there if that's okay. Yes, I'll kick things off. I mean, this is something that if you're involved in workforce management, certainly on the vendor side, you see all the time. And in some ways, it's becoming a big problem. In other ways, it's becoming less of a problem. So what do I mean by that? I mean, the pace of change is much faster than it used to be, and that's true with everything. But think back to the early days of contact centers. There was something called an ACD, which was a massive piece of hardware, which cost a fortune. Sat in an air-conditioned room, and you went through a huge purchasing process to get the thing, and you depreciated over 5 years, and there's no way you were moving off that anytime soon. Wind forward to the days of the cloud, and today you can change your routing platform as often as you like. If it's not performing well, if you're not getting good customer service, you can change very quickly because everyone's moved to the cloud. So that why is that? It's a great thing from the point of view of choice and increasing performance and more efficiency of customer service. But on the other hand, it means you need to get, relearn things more frequently. And we're talking about integration here. You need to maybe change your integrations more frequently as well. The other thing, of course, that's happened is, we specifically mentioned when we picked this up in the survey that it's not just about, the ACD or a contact routing platform. Quite often, all this is handled within the CRM system. And, the old integrations are great, but you need to integrate with the tools that people are actually using nowadays. So that's what we can conclude from that is that, you need a workforce management vendor that's, up to date, respects that this is the new world, that change can be, operations can change their systems, much more quickly than they used to be able to, and to help their customers to be fast on their feet. And to be fair, that's what we strive to do at Ingixo. It's a challenge. We like to think we're rising to it. I mean, integration is one of those areas where you really should expect great support from your workforce management vendor. And if they're not helping integrate, with the necessary systems, whether it's CRM or whatever it is, you really need to hold their feet to the fire. I'm speaking somebody from Ingixo here, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to support the way that things are done nowadays. I remember going back a few years that when we had a customer changing, there it probably was an ACD in those days. You'd have endless meetings with IT, telecoms, our own technical consultants would get involved, and it would be a very long-winded affair. So in some ways it's becoming less of a problem. That's because nowadays, vendors like Ingixo were making a deliberate design decision that setting up an integration with CRM or your routing platform, whatever it might be, is an end user task. All you need is the URL, an API key or something from one system, and you literally copy paste that into the other, and it just works. I mean, that's what we're striving for. But a lot of integrations like that. Inevitably, there are some that are not as straightforward as that, but we see it as an integral part of our job to help customers to create that seamless experience. So to make that integration thing just work. A good workforce management vendor will have local experts in each market to help the customers. And one thing we set our stall out to do at Ingixo is we don't sign a new customer until we've established how the integration will actually be done. And we'll be honest, if we haven't got a plug and play integration, we've got an open integration API. A lot of the vendors have got that, use industry standard REST protocols or whatever. And we've got people here, experts, to help you, just make that work. I think that's something you've got to look out for. But integration, is never going to be absolutely plug and play, but that's where we need to get. I think that's what I'd say about an important trend there. Anybody got anything to add to that topic?
Yeah, thank you so much for your answers. And I think, you would like to.
Yes. Yeah, I fully agree with Chris. I mean, integration is getting easier and easier, and indeed the protocols are getting better. Of course, sometimes you still have to agree on what is actually meant that is sent. That's not always, but we also have the experience that it's really easy nowadays with most systems to integrate. And we also support this idea that this should be possible, that you can really get the best of class and integrate different types of tooling. And we still see that certain vendors, they like to protect their environment, and you have additional costs indeed for them to open their API. But in principle, this integration makes it possible. What I think is, and that is the question, how to make full advantage of the tooling. I think that's very much related to what you want to achieve. So I think, you should invest, as I just said, in the weakest chain, in the weakest link of the chain, and that is. And that can be forecasting. It can be that your scheduling tool is not used in the right way. It can be that, somehow things go wrong in the real-time management. But focus on the weakest link, and and then make sure that this that this whole flow is working smoothly, and that is and finding that it should in agreement with the overall goals of and that relates to the previous question. It should be in agreement with the goal of the company as a whole. What do you want to achieve? Do you want to have low costs? Many WFM professionals are focused on low cost, but that is not always what the organization wants. So adapting to that I think is very important, and then you should support the company's goals, and that also gives you makes you a really valuable partner for senior management. I think that is also a key thing.
Thank you. And I would like to receive your opinion from recruiting perspective about that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely with Chris and Gare on both of their views and opinions on that. I suppose I've got a different sort of spin, because a lot of my work commences with a bit of a fact find and a discovery with clients around the current state of the planning function, the tools they're using, any innovation, any typical gripes. And I always sort of wince when I ask the question, you know, what isn't working? Because everybody's really super quick to tell you about the great things that they're doing, and rightly so. We probably don't blow our own trumpets hard and fast enough on that. But from my perspective, I think from an integration point of view, the biggest issue and challenges that the contact center clients that I work with and support seem to have perennially is, you know, our WFM works really, really well with the telephony. We've got all our call routing done. We can make those changes and be very dynamic with it. We've got our call recording and our speech and linguistics and all that sort of stuff, which is great. And it's almost, you know, the current variation of WFM platforms are omni-channel, right? You can flick and you can divert between channels almost instantaneously if you so wish to do so. I think where the integration, which isn't necessarily a WFM problem, but it kind of is at the same time, is when it doesn't integrate with HR systems, payroll systems. A very topical one for me for most of last year, based on the client demographic I was working with, was we have to treat our back office or our field-based planning completely as a separate entity. We can't get any integration. And I know they are two separate entities with a different dynamic, but there's got to be something there, right? And one of the biggest things I was surprised at on the research paper was just the very high percentage still of Excel and Erlang in play. And I knew it was going to be there because I speak to people and we talk about it, which is fine. But I kind of thought we would have seen a tapering away from that. And I guess maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, with AI's sort of dominance coming into play, we probably will. So yeah, that was my sort of 2 pennies worth really on the integration side. It is the contact center and it is about the people and serving the customer, but I suppose organizationally, there are those other sort of pinch points which maybe stop that kind of entire enterprise solution, you know, getting a 10 out of 10 maybe.
Thank you so much. Inspirational answers. So our next chapter is question and answers. So let me pick up the question. So this question is from Ted Lango. Thank you so much for your question. I agree with Gare heavily for some of AI tools. What do you think about leveraging data science, notebooks, Deep Note, Jupyter, Google Colab type tools to advance our tooling?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So these tooling, there are 2 things. I mean, it's not about, it's, of course, that is very good tooling. On the other hand, you need a lot of, as I said, call center knowledge to be able to do, for example, call center forecasting. And this gives you the tooling. And there are many tools out there. But it's also about combining that with your knowledge about AI, your knowledge about the call center field. And that's not always combined in the same person. So perhaps you have to team up with multiple persons. But then you have a tool that can make a forecast. But it's also very much, and I see this also, I see somebody saying, hey, it's not about, it's about freeing up analysts to be analysts and not just updaters. Yeah, and that's by Paul. And I really agree with that remark. It's about having this flow with the connections that we discussed and making sure that it is automatically updated, that you can even make an automatic forecast if you configure that in the right way, and if it's not a super complicated forecast that you're making. But that's all possible, and then you're an analyst thinking about, okay, how can I improve my tooling instead of the day-to-day job of running this model again, getting input manually, making errors that go with that. So I think it's really crucial and frees up, I mean, a lot of people as well, and people who can do other jobs and which they that are more interesting, but also that have lots of added value. So it's not about just about getting the algorithms, finding the algorithms, but it's also about getting that in a good workflow. And that requires also other skills. I mean, there's this whole field of data engineering coming into place right now that has developed over the recent years. We used to have software engineers. Nowadays, we have data engineers that make up a whole flow with that starts with the data, with the algorithms, ultimately to the decisions. And setting this up, that is of course our bread and butter. But I mean, the algorithm is only one part of that.
Yeah, yeah. So if anyone, Chris, Ian, would you like to add anything about that?
Not really. Gear's our guy for that one, isn't he?
All right. So yeah, I mean, I wish like that's something actually because these AI tools or any tools, yeah, they are assets, they are added value, but I think there should be human interaction to complete the forecasting or art part of forecasting. This is really crucial because it's an asset, as Ayn said in the first question. So, all right. So next question is from Paul Camras. So there has been an enormous amount of evolution in workforce management over the past few years. Are there any particular functions or capabilities that you feel warrant greater focus? Who would like to answer this question? Chris, if you don't mind, can you go?
I'll jump in first. That's all right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, great question, Paul. And I saw your second comment as well about AI, the value of AI in workforce management being about freeing up analysts to actually be analysts and not just updaters. I mean, there's no great talking going back to Ian's points about skills. You know, actually being a number cruncher is not really a skill that's needed very much any longer. And if AI can produce super accurate forecasts with less effort, guess what? You can spend that time not on, reading the newspaper or whatever, but on actually, getting the business intelligence, getting those interdepartmental relationships going, things like that, actually doing analysis and getting better each time rather than crunching numbers. But coming back to your question, Paul, I mean, there's a couple of things. I think that it's a pretty well kept secret or well known secret that AI is already out of the bag. It's been out of the bag for a couple of years now in workforce management. And as you pointed out, Paul, it's about time savings as well as accuracy. That makes a big difference. So that's something that maybe, there's a lot of buzz about AI since ChatGPT, was launched, but it's actually been behind the scenes doing a good job in workforce management for a couple of years' time. I mean, another trend that I think we're seeing is that workforce management software tools have got to be easier to use. When I first started using them, getting exposed to them, it was a massive learning curve. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of moving parts in a workforce management system. It can never be something that you can pick up in half a day, a bit like using, download an app to your smartphone. It's never going to be like that. But there are steps that, that a lot of the vendors have taken. And I'd like to think within Jigsaw, we've been at the forefront in this, in actually making it quicker to learn and easier to use. And there's a real business reason why that's important. It's not just to give people an easy life. It's one of the things that we learned from the survey. We've certainly experienced this, I think, around the table here, is that there is actually quite high turnover, staff turnover within planning teams. And if you get somebody up to speed, fully skilled in using a tool, if they then leave, there's suddenly a gap of knowledge that's got to be filled. And if the tool can be easy to learn, it's intuitive to use, then that's going to be a big help with that. That's worth mentioning. I mean, an example springs to mind is multi-skill scheduling. the pooling efficiencies you can get from multi-skills scheduling. The approach that the various systems take to that differs enormously, and some of them make a real meal of it. Others make it really quick and easy to use and get similar quality results. And the final thing I mentioned, which maybe has not been so observed, but it's definitely true, is that we talk about workforce management for contact centres, and that's a really well proven field, something we've specialised in for a while. But actually, workforce management as a discipline, and actually some of the software is actually department and even industry agnostic. You mentioned, Ian, that one of your clients was looking at planning the field force or the front desk people who aren't sitting at a desk with headsets on, and that's something else that I think that the software is definitely developing. Certainly in Jigsaw we're thinking of a lot.
So I think and your feedback will be really crucial on that point.
Yeah, I think Chris is right. I think I'm not a hands-on WFM tooler. I'm not a practitioner, but I see the tools, speak to lots of people that deploy them, utilize them, optimize them, and I think in terms of Paul's question around evolution, I think certainly now with the advent of cloud-based hosting, tools have become much more accessible, easy to use. They're much more user-friendly. A lot of the algorithms that sit behind the myriad of tools that are out there are very, very similar in computation. It's around sort of the user interface and how easy it is to navigate and program your set and define rules and applications for your business setting. So I think that's definitely been a big uptick over the last 5, 6, 7 years or so. Chris already touched on one of the points I was going to make, which was around evolution. Sorry. What I thought was really interesting as an offshoot of the pandemic and the mad rush to globally for us all to be working remotely was how planners and ergo the tools had to be quickly adaptable to the different set of parameters and rules of home-based working. And I saw some great innovations with customers that, from having static, in on-premises systems, deploying cloud-based systems within a week, 2 weeks, setting up their rules, a lot of trial and error, and things fell over in those early couple of days, as is to be expected. But, they were really driving innovation that they'd never seen before in their business. Fractional hours, shift swaps, shift bidding, app-based schedule preferencing. So people had a little bit more choice, and perhaps whilst we were all in that sort of crazy environment of uncertainty, but still working in an alien setting, it kind of gave them a little bit more empowerment and ownership to plan what they were doing within the business, within the parameters that were acceptable.
Thank you so much. Do you have anything to add?
Excuse me, there's actually a fire drill or a reality going on here.
If you need to leave, please do. Health is much more important than workforce management. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, and we are at the end of our webinar. Thank you so much for attending. And it's a great pleasure to be with you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your answers as well. Please keep following WFM. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thanks very much for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.